8-1, 11-1, 10-0, 6-1. Those are the four scores of the first round of the 2026 Ontario Hockey League playoffs, Flint Firebirds against the Owen Sound Attack. 4 games, 4 losses, and a combined score of 35-3. That is not a sweep. That is a team being taken apart in public. Within weeks of it ending, one of the players who lived through it signed a professional contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization and joined a team that was about to win a championship. His name is Harry Nansi. He was 18 years old. He was the 153rd pick of the draft. And what Toronto did with him in April of 2026 is one of the more interesting decisions the organization made all year. Here is the setup, and then I will explain what actually happened, because there is a rule in hockey that most fans have never heard of, and it is the whole reason this story exists. Harry Nansi is a forward from Nepean, Ontario. He is 6'3" and 179 pounds. Owen Sound took him 74th overall in the 2023 OHL draft. Toronto took him 153rd overall in the 5th round of the 2025 NHL draft. Across 3 seasons with the Attack, he played 175 games and put up 88 points, 20 goals, and 68 assists. And 2025-26, his 3rd year, was the season that changed his life. 67 games, 13 goals, 43 assists, 56 points. A career high by a wide margin, and second in scoring on his entire team. To understand how big a jump that was, look at the year before it. 7 goals and 16 assists, 23 points. He more than doubled his production in 12 months. And then the playoffs happened, and his team got outscored 35-3. Now here is the rule. In professional hockey, there is a contract called an amateur tryout, an ATO. It is a short-term agreement that lets a team sign a player who is still an amateur, usually a junior or college player whose season has just ended, for the remainder of the professional season. It costs almost nothing. It does not use up a contract slot. And critically, a player on an ATO is eligible to play in the Calder Cup playoffs, even if he signed in April with 2 weeks left in the regular season. On the 6th of April, 2026, the Toronto Marlies signed Harry Nansi to an amateur tryout for the rest of the season. They signed Tyler Hopkins, Toronto's 3rd-round pick from the same draft, on the same day. So follow the sequence. Owen Sound gets erased in 4 games. Nansi's junior season is over in the first week of April. And instead of going home for 5 months, he goes straight into a professional dressing room in Toronto. And the team he walked into went on to win the 2026 Calder Cup, the championship of the American Hockey League, beating the Chicago Wolves 4-1 in the final. The second title in Marlies franchise history, and the only trophy the entire Maple Leafs organization won that season. That Marlies room is worth describing because it is the actual product Toronto was handing him. Artur Akhtiamov, the goaltender, won the Jack A. Butterfield Trophy as the most valuable player of the entire Calder Cup playoffs. Luke Hames, an undrafted center out of Dartmouth, played all 24 games of the run in his first professional season. Ben Danford, the first-round defenseman from 2024, was a regular on the blue line. Easton Cowan was there. Miroslav Holinka was there. That is not a collection of career minor leaguers. That is the next Toronto Maple Leafs team, 2 or 3 years early, winning a championship together, and an 18-year-old from a club that had just been outscored 35-3 was standing inside it in April. Drop it in the comments right now. If your season had just ended with your team being outscored 35-3, would you have wanted to go straight into a professional playoff run, or would you have needed the summer to get your head back? Be honest with me, because I think most people say one thing and mean the other. Now, why did Toronto do this? Because the ATO is not really about the ice time. Let me be straight about what an ATO actually is for a teenager. He is the youngest player in the room by 3 or 4 years. He is behind professionals who have been in that league for half a decade. He's not walking in and taking somebody's spot on the top line in April, and the reporting at the time of his signing noted that neither he nor Hopkins had made their AHL debut yet. What an ATO gives an 18-year-old is everything that happens away from the whistle. Professional practices, at professional speed, every day. A professional strength and conditioning program. A professional video room. Meals, sleep schedules, travel, and an entire dressing room of grown men doing the job he wants for the next 15 years. And in this specific case, it gave him a front-row seat to a championship run. What a team looks like in May when the games get tight and the margins disappear. For a fifth-round pick, that is an enormous amount of development crammed into 2 months that would otherwise have been an empty summer. And it tells you something about how the organization ranks him. Teams do not hand ATOs to every prospect whose junior season ends. They hand them to the ones they want in the building. Look at who else got one. Tyler Hopkins, Toronto's third-round pick from the same 2025 draft, a center who has 3 gold medals with Canada and wore a letter for 2 different OHL clubs in the same season. Toronto signed Hopkins and Nansi on the same day, which puts a fifth-rounder in the same sentence as a third-rounder in the organization's own filing system. Frank Jurasevich came in on an ATO as well, with a few other players on professional tryouts. That is a front office deliberately stuffing its championship roster with teenagers it wants exposed to a playoff run. It costs the team almost nothing, and it compresses about a year of development into 8 weeks. There is one more thing an ATO does that nobody talks about, and it is psychological. A junior player's season ending is an abrupt, hollow thing. One night you are playing. The next morning you are cleaning out a stall and going home. Ending it in a professional building instead, watching men prepare for playoff games, changes what an 18-year-old thinks the standard is. Players who have seen it up close train differently in July. That is most of the point. Now the honest part, and it matters. 56 points is a good OHL season. It is not a great one. Players who become NHL regulars out of the Ontario Hockey League usually put up more than that in their draft plus 1 year, and Nansi is 179 pounds on a 6'3" frame, which is thin enough that a professional league would be genuinely unkind to him right now. There is also an uncomfortable question hiding in the 35-3. A player's point totals are partly a product of his teammates, and Owen Sound was bad. Badly enough that they got outscored by 32 goals across 4 playoff games. On one reading, Nansi produced in spite of that, which is impressive. On the other reading, being second in scoring on a team that gets erased like that does not tell you very much. Fifth-round picks are also long odds by any measure. Most of them never play a game in the National Hockey League. But here is the counter. Toronto just finished 32 and 36 and 14, 78 points out of the playoffs for the first time since 2015-16, after the largest single-season collapse in franchise history. No Stanley Cup since 1967. An organization in that position cannot afford to develop prospects slowly and politely. It has to accelerate the ones it believes in. And Toronto took a 179-pound 18-year-old off a team that had just been humiliated, put him on a professional contract, and stood him in a room that won a championship. That is not a courtesy invitation. That is an organization deciding it does not want to waste a single one of his summers. So tell me where he lands. Does Harry Nansi turn those 2 months into an NHL career, a fifth-round pick who actually makes it? Or is this the high point? Give me your real prediction below, and tell me honestly, would you have signed him after a 35-3 sweep, or would you have waited? I read every single comment,